produced by the modial interaction of magnetoreluctance and capacitive directance. The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a panametric fan.
So you see in the title Flat Earth. Flat Earth was simply adopted by me because at the time it was a trending term, and it was being hijacked by various different factions and used in order to pump and muddy the waters with propaganda, misinformation and all the usual drivel. The claim made to me from an impressionable youngster through my adult years was that I lived on the exterior of an oblate spheroid. Now I reject that based on me becoming a direct realist and taking the word science and stripping it apart. So a scientist or science for me is simply a human being using the apparatus they were born with the constitution they were born with, your senses, in order for you to understand and perceive the very world that you're living in. So science does not belong to an institution or any exterior authority or other human or other entity. It is my tool, my discernment. I decide what is real and what is not. And the way I do that is what is observed in my objective reality. So when I have other human beings making claims to me about the substances in my objective world, those human beings are duty bound to practically demonstrate to me. There's nothing to debunk. It debunks itself. When they can't offer you practicality and a definition of what it is they're actually claiming.
Anyway, the reason you don't have the space and everything's freeform, we've explained this many times, is because everything is accelerating.
When you let it go, it is now accelerating and
It's a science of sophism.
They are accelerating at the same rate.
It's a science of cartoons.
So it cancels the forces out.
Right? It's a science of how to animate things using crayons and wee drawings. But what they're claiming
it is now accelerating.
There's no science because they can't show it practically.
The acceleration is astronomical because it is itself accelerating. So from its own reference frame, there's now a net sum zero acceleration.
There's no science. It's a science of perception.
They're accelerating at the same rate.
It's a science of perception.
So therefore, people
There's a
have
fucking
actually
matter.
have no
It's a
forces.
science of perception.
But when you do it from outside, like you said, the whole
It's a science of perception.
around.
Is it fucking that hard?
They are accelerating at the same rate.
It's a science of perception.
They are accelerating at the same rate.
Will claim that there is a Albert Einstein which is percent current acceleration.
It's a science of perception.
Yeah, I think everybody agrees on it.
Is it fucking that hard?
It was a normal Lotus or Delta type placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every seventh conductor being connected by a non-reversible.
It's a science of sophism. It's a science of cartoons. It's a science of how to animate things using crayons and wee drawings. But what they're claiming is no science because they can't show it practically. There's no science. These people have been showing me these images my whole life. And when I became a direct realist and eradicated the belief and faith that I had in my mind, I started to pick apart the belief structure that I held since a child. I started to realise that it was impossible for me to be living on the exterior of an oblate spheroid for a number of reasons. My stance requires individual critical thinking people, not people inducing fallacious reasoning, listening to authority, being swayed by consensus. I don't give a fuck about any of that. It's time for you to stand up and be counted. Or you can be intellectually lazy and dishonest with yourself and allow the shit to perpetuate. I choose not to. So, don't come here with preconceived bullshit and expect me to answer to that bullshit. The Globe answers to me. That's a claim that's being pushed. That is a claim that's being pushed. And the hassle and annoyance that we people have been trying to talk about for 4 years now of zealot, culty behaviour because you reject stand up for yourself. Stand up for yourself. Of a no-nonsense approach. Stand up for yourself. Stand up for yourself. Of a no-nonsense approach. Oh, I've got a fucking big BMX that can fly. Show me a big BMX that can fly. Carrie, you're a fucking bullshitting lying piece of shit, fuck off. Oh, I've got a Ferrari that goes 240 miles an hour. And I've got a summer racing speed.
They're accelerating at the same rate.
Show me. Carrie, fuck off. You're a liar. I'm not here to defend and answer anybody's fucking questions. I was born into this, and the claims will answer to me. There is no proof that you live in a globe. It's no real. The sooner you accept that, the better it will be. Dragging your heels and taking a tantrum and pointing your finger at people like me is not going to help. So pull your wee socks up, grow a set, man up, or woman up, whatever, not to be sexist. Right? Let's sort it out.
I will, to be quite honest, Del, nobody puts it quite like you, my man. It's direct, it's straightforward, it's simple to understand. Yeah. So, my presentation hopefully adds just a little bit to the whole journey so far. We're just going to go over some points, right?
Yeah.
But I recommend anybody looks at any of your hangouts the first 15 minutes to get the basics. Yeah.
The repetition.
So some of this might be repetition, but this might help newbies, and we can put this presentation up afterwards. And as you say, it's a separate video then for folks who want to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Excellent, mate. Excellent. So the other aspects, obviously, of the journey is some of the kind of social type aspects of the characters that you're going to meet online and some of the games that are being played. So, again, going back to the beginning, it's a lot of that stuff should be irrelevant to you, but I know people do get caught up in it. For me personally, I use some of the characters in the games that they display so that I can highlight it and give examples for people to reflect on. So you have people on both sides of the false dichotomy, globe, flat, concave, whatever it may be. My call has always been, look, there's a serious lack of understanding amongst people about the actual world they live in, regardless of what you believe it to be. So my experience going out into the street is realising the real lack of understanding of what people believe to be true. So for instance, if I've got somebody in the street that tells me they believe it's a globe and I ask them why, they really don't know why. Now for me, that's alarming. So my call was, look, at the end of the day, regardless of what anybody believes, this could be resolved and beneficial to everybody, because for me, human beings should have access to a proper education and be able to discern and make their own minds up. If we're talking about objectivity, there should be no deception. Nobody should have a problem with what I'm actually saying here. Everybody should be looking to push for that to happen so that people are more critical about where they actually live. So people are not, so they've been pulled from pillar to post and they've been played at a social level. They've been appealed to on an emotional level, psychological levels. Games are being played about focusing on people's character or personality or how they look or, whatever else. None of that has anything to do with objectivity. We're talking about the objective world that is impersonal. It's got nothing to do with characters, skin colour, religion, politics. None of that. It's irrelevant. So when you see people who are trying to perpetuate those games that relate to the things I've just listed, there's an issue. You need to remove your attention from it and get back to the focus, which is about objectivity. You're trying to ascertain and establish what the truth is about your objective world. So people need to be aware of these types of games. And people like me, Gav, and many of the other people here have experienced it tenfold. you know, from globe cult disciples to professed flat earthers, all spewing jargon and bullshit at each other, you know, getting personal, pulling people into camps and, you know, organised groups and whatever else. There's so many games online that for me is treacherous and can waste a lot of time. So keep it simple. You're the direct realist. Science is in your hands, and it's up to you to discern what you accept to be true and what you don't accept to be true. That's not going to come from some external authority. That's your power. It's up to you to make the decisions. So darlings, how are we?
I mean, it's the same as you take a hammer and you hit a nail enough.
Yeah.
It gets hot because
Yeah.
you're transferring the chicken.
The answer is motion. The answer is motion. You demonstrate a force with motion.
And all the objects are always in motion. That's why it's called static. You understand what static means? It's still actually in motion. You make the claim that this table, which is static, it's not moving, it's observed not to be moving, everything on it is observed not to be moving, is moving. And all the objects are always in motion. That's why it's called static. You understand what static means? It's still actually in motion. Anyway, the reason you don't have displacement when things freefall, we've explained this many times, is because everything is accelerating. They are accelerating at the same rate.
It is now accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared.
They are accelerating at the same rate.
Accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared towards the ground.
A globe claim that there is a downward 9.8 meters per second squared acceleration?
They are accelerating at the same rate.
It is now accelerating at 9.8 meters per second squared.
Okay, yeah, but
things accelerate down at a certain rate.
yeah, I think everybody agrees with that.